It is Monday morning and I'm getting stuck into a small project while I wait for products to arrive to continue with the buffet. Hi, by the way. I don't think I said hello. So I've just had an entire week off. It started off as me just taking one day off while I waited for other things to happen, and then I was going to come back on the Tuesday and keep working, and then my son got sick, so I've had the entire week off because my husband just started a job and he couldn't stay home with him. Anyway, so I've had a week off, so I'm kind of struggling a bit on this Monday morning, but I'm going to get stuck straight into it. So the pieces I'm working on is these two bedside tables that were given to me by Angela. So I see these for sale a lot on Marketplace, and I don't think they're super appealing, and a lot of people overlook them, and I have myself heaps of times because I just didn't know what I would do with them because of the metal legs. And I always found them kind of limiting, but I've spent a lot of time looking different things up and different styles and what I could possibly do with them. And I have a solid plan in mind of what I'm doing with them. I have pictures in my brain and I know exactly what the plan is, so it's going to go really well. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so I've moved them up onto my workbench, which, as you'll notice, is different. This is my old workbench from when I was working at home, and I've gotten rid of the other one, which was a cheap, crappy dining table, and it was about ready to buckle in the middle because it wasn't its intended purpose. So this works out well because it takes up less of a footprint in my workshop. I won't be tripping over the feet all the time, and it's got storage underneath for when I have sheets of plywood and MDF and stuff. Anyway, so the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is obviously take the handles off, because that's what I always do. I will not be... Will I keep that? No, I won't keep those handles. I'll keep them for something else, but I'll be changing the handles. But because of the way the legs are in the way, I'm going to make my life a hell of a lot easier, and I'm going to see if there is a way that I can take these out. Okay, so it looks fairly simple, and it's just 2 screws front and back on both sides that hold it onto the legs. So I'll remove those and pull these apart and go from there. So before I get too carried away with everything, the first thing I'm going to do is mark where the drawers go back. I had to rearrange them a couple of times to get them to fit and slide nicely, and I got them where I like them, so just marking them with A1 and 2 and B1 and 2, obviously. So when I started pulling these apart, I just kind of assumed that the legs were also attached from the underside or somewhere else. Don't know why I didn't think to look, but as I pulled them apart, I realised that the front and back parts are separate. So yeah, that was a little bit awkward. I think for the second one, I'll flip it upside down just to make it easier for myself. But, regardless of that, it was still really easy to pull apart. Alright, so I've got all of the sanding done, and so I started off with 120 grit sandpaper. I didn't need to use 80 grit because the finish on it was quite thin. And then once I got all of the 120 done, I moved up to 240 grit. Now, if you have one of these that you want to do, can't move that. If you have one of these that you want to do, just a heads up, this part is timber, and this part is not. Don't know if you can see it there, but I burnt through a little bit of veneer there, but it's not really noticeable and it'll be fine. I didn't think to check because I just assumed that it would be all solid timber, but it is not, so do not make the same mistake that I did. And then once I finished with 240 grit sandpaper all over, I then went in with 400 grit sandpaper and my sanding sponge. Went over the whole piece with that, and also took down anything that was left on the edges. I try to avoid sharp edges like this with the electric sander so that I don't smooth it down or curve it over or anything like that, or change the profile of it. I pay particular attention to the end grain with the 400 grit sandpaper. In some cases, depending on how tight the grain is, if it is a more open grain like pine, like really wide grain pine, you might be better off then going in again on the end grain with 600 grit sandpaper to close that grain a bit, because once you put the stain on, it'll show up more opaque on here because the end grain will take in more of that stain, if that makes sense. I think I've talked about it before. You are smart people, I am sure you will get what I'm saying. But yeah, all the sanding is done. So for the look I'm going for, I'm using Millie washed away stain in the colour Cuttlefish. So I'm basically going to be watering this down a bit so it's a bit more transparent, because I'm really just wanting to make sure I keep this raw wood finish. I don't want the finish to be super opaque because of what else I have planned for it, so I'm just going to do 2 coats of Cuttlefish over the whole piece. Alright, so that is 2 coats of Cuttlefish watered down. I could easily leave them like this and they would look amazing and nice and simple, but I have a design plan for the front of the drawers, and that plan includes this little treasure. So this is one of the Millie boutique mineral paint pens in the colour Daisy's Milk. So it's a, let's see if I can get the lid off. Ow. So has a, I think that's a felt tip, maybe. You do have to prime these, so just like do it on a flat surface and prime them by pushing it up and down like that until you get paint coming through. So that just primes the tip. And so these are refillable, so you can either refill it with the same colour, or I imagine you could also wash it out and once again prime the, like fill it with water. This is what I would do anyway, fill it with water and prime the tip just like you would to start it off. and just keep doing that until it comes clear. I probably wouldn't go from a white to something dark. But anyway, not really the point. This wouldn't usually be a problem with the washed away stains, but because I added so much water to it, the grain in the wood is raised. So I'm just going over everything with 400 grit sandpaper to smooth it all down again before I continue. So this is where I'd usually show you my inspiration photo for this piece, but I'm going to wait and show you at the end because I don't want to give away what I'm doing. So first thing I'm doing is marking the center of the drawers. Once I had my center, I then used my combination square set to find the 90-degree angle that I needed. And then to keep things simple, I just used my ruler as a width guide for the rest of my lines. But I stuffed up. For whatever reason, I don't have an eraser here. I don't know why, but I managed to clean off the mistake, and once it dried, you wouldn't even know that it was there. So now this is where the Millie Boutique Mineral Paint Pen comes into action, and it worked really well. You do have to prime it occasionally as you're using it, but it was really good, and I will definitely be getting more down the track. I did, however, encounter a problem. If you end up doing this yourself and using these paint pens, I wouldn't suggest marking your lines with a lead pencil like this, because the lead from the pencil was coming off on the felt tip, so I kind of buggered it up a bit and had to swap over to a paintbrush. And you'll probably notice here why I don't do fine detail painting anymore, because my hands have started to form a tremor over the years, which is unfortunate because I use my hands for so many things, but I'm sure a lot of us encounter this problem. These paintbrushes, for those of us in Australia, are from Kmart. I think it was like $6 for a pack of 4 or 5 paintbrushes, and they've got little grippy things on the handles that made it really comfortable to use. I only brought these paintbrushes for my son to paint a clock for Father's Day for his dad, but they actually ended up being decent paintbrushes, and I'm not unimpressed with them. So if I wanted these lines to be perfectly straight, I could have placed the ruler on there and run the paint pen along the ruler, but I didn't want them to be perfect. I wanted them to be more organic, which is why I went with my shaky hands, and I couldn't be happier with how they turned out. Now, I was originally thinking of going for white handles for these because I thought it would look nicer, but I decided to go with something darker that would tie in more with the legs. And yes, I know it probably would have looked better if the knob holes were in the center of the design, but you know what? I don't care. and it was going to be more work, and I left my drill batteries at home, and this is only for us, so it don't matter. So quick reminder of what they looked like before. And as promised, this is my inspiration photo. I found this on Pinterest. I did try to credit the creator of this piece, but I don't think it was an individual person. I'm pretty sure it is a store-bought item. And unfortunately I can't lock down the exact origin of this piece, but it is, you can find it online. And here is my dupe of this piece. I'm super happy with how they turned out. I will definitely be doing more pieces in this style and definitely with this design because I absolutely love it, and I'm hoping you guys do too. Struggling with my words. So please let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to check the description box for all products used, as well as my Amazon wish list and the Buy Me a Coffee app and everything else you might possibly want to find there. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.